If only y'all could be a fly on the wall. Some of our conversations pre-show are, we sat there and we just had like a 25-minute conversation, something like that, and we realized, man, we should be recording this because this is great. Other than the vulgarity, which is something that we don't mind letting a word or two slip, but we're a little more vulgar on those on that. But I mean, it was we're definitely going to have to do a show on what we just talked about. I really think that parenting, and what we've learned from parenting, I think that would be one hell of a show, really. So, hey, everybody, my
Completely
name is
agree.
Zach Clayton, Community Pay It Forward, Community Dare to Care, and the PACT channels. I'm here with my brother, my friend, and my partner, Joel, from Rewired from Men, from for Men, for Mend. Now I can't talk.
Put your teeth back in.
Yeah. Well, that might be the problem. I think that my like upper lip might be glued to my teeth. That might be part of the problem. So, hey, all, before we get going, we need to let you know we are in dire need of your help right now. The Mission for Healthy Heroes is coming up in a week and a half. Okay. It is just days away. And I have had a problem, and I would alter my camera, but then I'd never get it sat right. And you all would have to look at me doing this all show, trying to get back into the camera. So I'm not going to do that. But sitting right here on my desk is my computer. It decided it didn't want to play with me no more. So it went out. And this right here, as we're set up, this is perfect because we're recording this. But when I try to stream, it's not strong. It's not a strong stream. We need your help. If you could support us, if you can sponsor us, if you can participate in the Mission for Healthy Heroes coming up on Sunday, the 22nd, there's a QR code right above Joel's head. Please scan that and be part of this. We desperately need your help to get this computer fixed because this one that I got right here, I mean, I hope it doesn't hear me, but it's kind of old. And we know about old things and we don't work as well as we used to. So we could really, really, really use your help. Please, as we say, as it says below in this little string here, you can make a difference right now. Your voice, your experience, and your story can help people, and we need your help to make this happen. So, but now on with the show, Rewired for Men. I got it right that time. I bring in Mr. Joel White. How you doing, brother?
I'm all right, sir. I'm all right, sir. Like you were saying, we have great conversation about 25, 30 minutes, and we look at each other and go, if only we would have recorded it somewhere back
Yeah, yeah.
from that degree. Yeah,
Well, but that is one of the great things about what we do. Guess what? We have control on what we're going to do with the shows next time.
absolutely.
So you have a very unique trip coming up. Tell us about it.
Oh, good memory there. You see, I didn't talk about that previously. Yeah, I'm off on Friday the 13th, depending on what your belief set is, going to Egypt. Really excited, never been, always wanted to go. But it's also quite an interesting dynamic, and it's one of the things we talked about before. It's me, my son, and my ex-wife. And somebody, what ex-wife? And it's like, yeah, I'm very fortunate to have a amicable, if not, oh, I won't say that again, but a very good relationship with my ex-wife, and regardless of what's happened between us, the important thing is that most of the time, majority of the time, we land on the same page. And what we land on the same page is about is for Aiden, and he's now 9 years old. But I think it was when he was 7 or 8. He said, "Daddy, there's one thing I really love about you, and that's about creating memories, creating happy memories." And that's very wise for a kid at 6 years, 7 years old, 8 years old to say something like that. But it really put it in perspective, the importance of it. There's that thing which always stuck with me, and I'm realizing it now more so. But I remember somebody saying to me, whatever goes on between you and your partner, or your wife, or your ex-wife, You know, it's not about you. It's not about them. It's about your kids.
Yeah.
Kids don't stay kids for long. They grow up really quickly. I didn't really appreciate the grow up really quickly part until obviously Aiden's come along and blink of an eye, you know, he's 6, and the blink of another eye, he's 8, and now he's 9. You know, he was 9 2 weeks ago. It's just surreal. It really is surreal.
Yeah, brother, unfortunately it
Yeah.
does not it doesn't stop. You know, you turn around and all of a sudden they're 33, 34, and you're like,
Mm.
"Oh, stop." You know, I'm not old enough to have a kid as old as you are, so stop that. You know, you start getting those thoughts, but I know I am so extremely jealous of you. If I had a bucket list, Egypt is that bucket list.
Really?
I love Egyptian history. I would love to go to Rome, to Greece. I'd love to go on just a tour that had nothing to do with anything but history, and just go to all of these places, the Parthenon, the Colosseum, you know, the Valley of the Kings, to the pyramids, of course, the Sphinx. I would love to just go on a tour with, you know, one of these days. That's what I keep telling people is I'm hoping that you know, one of these days, because of community pay it forward, I'm able to take my grandkids, I'm able to take my kids all on this trip. We all go together. And you know, if we're taking that trip, imagine, Joel, how many people we've helped. If
Yeah.
we have, you know, if we get to go on this trip. And you know, I just, I, oh god, I, when you told me you were going to Egypt, I wanted to hate you, but you know, I love you too much. So you know, I was like going, you rat, damn, damn. But I love the fact that you're going with your ex-wife. I think that's so powerful that you guys, look, you guys have this unique relationship to where you do this. I know that ex-wives are hard. I know they're difficult. I know. I've got two
So
of
she
them.
is at times, and
Yeah.
sometimes I am.
Yeah,
So
oh yeah. But I mean, to be able to put, and it's hard to put your own feelings aside. You just, you literally can't do that. You can't put your own feelings aside, but you've got to make the care for your child mean more than your own feelings. And that's what you and your, and your former wife are able to do. You're able to put the caring, the love, and the, you know, the support for your son. You're able to put his needs above your feelings.
absolutely, and again, it's quite interesting this conversation as well. It's society, society only seems to have a negative connotation for when you split from your wife, and that's ex-wife. What does that actually? What does it mean? What does ex-wife mean? Does it mean she's obsolete and you put her in a box and send her back to Walmart for destruction? You know, it's such an awful term. It's like, and what is the alternative term? It doesn't really seem to be one. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, I know.
no. It's just a food for thought.
Yeah,
That's all.
well, I made the mistake once of introducing someone to my first wife, and I introduced her as my ex-wife, and she goes, "I don't like that. Please do not do that again." And I was like, "But this is," and she goes, "I'm not dead. I'm still here." And
Yeah,
I really took that to heart. And I also feel the way, Joel, when someone passes away. I don't pronounce them as they were. No, because in my mind, in my heart, they're still here. My
yes,
Uncle Barry passed away a week ago tomorrow. Okay. He is. He
yeah,
is still my Uncle Barry. He is still a United States veteran. He is the man that I love. Not was, because he
yeah,
is always going to be part of me. And
yeah.
that was that's another one of those things. I just don't see it as they were. You know, they were a part of my life. So they're not now? Out of sight, out of mind? What the what the hell kind of vision is that? No, they are. They
Yeah,
are. So
yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's because my brain is like, how do I speak about it? Because I don't like the word. I don't know how she introduces me or speaks about me. I ain't got. I hope it's not got lots of vulgarity in it. But anyway, and I don't know. Maybe this is the question to ask her. You know, when you speak to people about me, how do you introduce it? No, I'd be curious. Um, but it's like my brain tries the which also is a bit clumsy as well. Yeah, this is my son's mum or the mother of my son. It's like that doesn't seem quite right either. You know what I mean? I'm like, I
yeah,
don't
that
know.
almost kind of sounds like baby mama, you know, it really makes it to where this person's not important in my history. And that's
Yeah,
not, it's not true.
no, absolutely not. But like I said, yeah, you know, I really appreciate your input on that. I guess if anything, tune in for next month's show and you'll find out how it went, won't you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll find out if you've become a mummy and things went well, or if if you've made it back and things went really well. So, and I do wish you guys safe travels. My mind will be with you because I know that Egypt is at times a fairly volatile place. But then again,
Yes.
I'm talking from America right now, and
sorry, sorry.
so, hey, Joel, we just had something happen here in the States that commercials are, of course, all the rage around this football game. Um, of course, this year it was topped by the halftime show ridiculousness. But you know what? The truth is, I didn't watch a single down. I didn't watch any of it, not because I'm protesting anything. It's just I don't care. It's not hockey. That does bug me though that our hockey is called off for 3 weeks while our players are over in Italy. But commercials are something that are they trying to make men feel like shit about themselves?
You want me to answer that question, or is that rhetorical?
No, I'm really you've seen some things and you were bringing some stuff up, and then I brought it up to you that like every at least third commercial here in the States is aimed at men and ED. And it's like, is it really that big of a problem? I think right now there's less about ED and more about men aren't ready to make the commitment of fatherhood, you know?
Yeah.
And so, but boy, you watch TV and there's a comedian. I wish I could give him credit, but I can't remember who it was. But I believe it was a British comedian who came out and said, when you watch American TV, you can tell three things: Americans like their booze and have erectile dysfunction. And boy, that's true right now. You watch commercials of for anything, and every time and now that betting has become legal, oh my god, those are the three commercials: alcohol, betting, and erectile dysfunction commercials.
It's quite interesting that it's over here. There seems to be. It's weird. It's kind of shifted a little bit. So we're getting more of aimed at men. I guess women as well, but more at men. These different ways of investing in the stock market. There's these different types of investment apps and blah 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 and da da da. And then there's the one what you talked about, the good old gambling. Do you know what I mean? Gambling with. And then in a small print at the bottom it says, "Be aware, gamble safe." Or it goes on, we give you this perfect lifestyle of
Oh
gambling. And
yeah, yeah.
the last second is, "Be aware, look after yourself," and it disappears.
Yep.
We've done our bit, people. We've shown them mistakes. Have to go tick.
Yeah.
So, so
Yeah,
there's
you can
that.
win millions, you can win billions, you can win. And then right there at the end, winning is not guaranteed. This can really screw up your life forever. If you have a problem, call these numbers. And of course, they do it in a sped up voice so you can't understand what they're saying. It's kind of like a prescription when they're trying to talk about a prescription. This prescription is good for headaches, but it can cause, and it lists the things that it could cause. And you're like going, good God, I think I'll deal with the headaches.
Absolutely. But it's quite, all this is really relevant to us because what we're seeing more in society is we're seeing more men are compared to what we were in the past being more concerned about their appearance. There's been even more push on appearance of men and how they look. It's particularly what we find particularly in the UK. There's this push now even more towards men who are 40 to 45 years upwards to look a certain way. What I'm realizing, I'm coming into 45, that the kind of six pack that was there has now become a bit six pack of beer. It started shifting definition. And it's like, oh, where did that come from? And it's like, okay. And I found myself thinking about it. But I did that major mistake you should never do, which is you get one commercial like on Facebook, you're streaming, just have a look just out of interest. And then next day, every post you see this weight loss, bill loss, machines to buy, military workouts. And it's just like, and this is what we talked about before. You usually see, this guy has got this big belly, and then overnight he's got a six pack, and it's like miracle. And you were saying, well, which has been doing around in the UK, the Tai Chi one. You got
Yep.
this man with a big six pack. I do Tai Chi I do Tai Chi everything. By the way, we're not taking the mick out of people who do Tai Chi. It's just the unrealistic nature in how things are being sold as the cure, the cure for your six pack. So
You
of
know,
beer.
and I'm not naive enough to say that that's what a commercial is supposed to do. A commercial is supposed to give you what, this is what could happen. And
Yeah.
we, as a commercial, we want people to see what their end result could be. But I mean, let's be honest here. In just 5 short weeks, I became from this slovenly, you know, 600-pound clump of pudding to now I can lift a bus with my, like you said, my six-pack abs and long flowing hair and dateable face. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Not without a lot of surgery and AI. Okay, let's just leave it at that. But you're right. Hey, look, if you want to come at it and say, hey, you know what, you should try Tai Chi. It's going to make you feel better. You can't. Yeah, you're
Oh,
right.
absolutely.
Probably. By the way, my six pack quickly became a keg. So you know, I I went from a six pack to a keg. So possibly a beer barrel.
I love it. I just love it. Fantastic.
So,
Fantastic.
but yeah, I think those and we've talked about it. How men need to be ready that to really be careful with your expectations
Yeah.
and be guarded with your expectations. You know what? There's nothing wrong with having dreams. There's nothing wrong with setting goals. Everyone should set goals, as a matter of fact. But don't let a commercial set your goals,
Yeah.
and don't let someone else's results affect you and affect your happiness. There's a lot of
Mm.
stuff that goes on in your life that are going to affect everything you do. You can't lose weight just by losing weight. There's got to be everything in life that has to line up towards I'm losing weight. I'm losing weight the right way, you know? I mean, hell, you can stop eating altogether and you can lose weight, right?
Yeah, but
You
let's not do
can,
that.
yeah, yeah. But
But I
it's
get you.
unhealthy.
I get you.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing. You've got to prepare yourself in more ways than one than, take this magic pill and everything's going to change, and but they don't explain this. They just want you to think this, buy my program in 5 weeks you're going to be an Adonis. Well, maybe one of the wrestlers in the 60s Adonis, the big old fat belly guys, possibly one of them guys. But I mean, we need to care for ourselves before we fall for something like that.
It's something quite interesting what you've picked up on there, and this is a bit of a data secret about me. I find over my life that I go through phases of watching WWE, the wrestling.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would say on one hand it's fake. It's fake from the perspective of the storylines and that they rehearse the moves and obviously outcome of the match. But the physical activity within that is real. They do hours and hours and hours of training, and by God, do they get injured? Some of the injuries are real. That's not fake. I don't know about you, but I certainly will be able to get into a ring and do some of the stuff they do. Not unless I want to break my back, break my neck. Yeah,
Yeah.
that bit's real, and you can't take that away from it. And for me, it is chewing them for the eyes. And found myself going through a period of time of watching it. But what's quite interesting in what we're speaking about here is that if you look at some of the wrestlers that are in WWE, yeah, you do get the ones with the six packs and blah blah and this that. There's quite a contingent of them which do have the so-called beer belly or a lot older or whatever, and they still get just as favoured as perhaps your six pack big boys as well. So again, it's quite interesting how that's changed, because if anybody knows anything about the wrestling, during the 80s and the 90s, they were all chiseled, but by God, were they tanking steroids
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And be honest, unfortunately, a lot of them are dead from steroid use, addiction, or they are just have really serious mental and/or physical health problems from that degree. So again, it goes back to what we've been talking about. This idea of the magic pill seems to do the rounds from that perspective. Again, we were talking about this in the break. I'll be 45 this year, and it's like, the way I look at things is changing, because obviously physically I'm changing. I think when you get to the age of 40, where we start to rapidly die off, and things fall out
Right.
in places it didn't fall out in before. So again, it's been really interesting reflecting on that, and what's coming up for me around that. And I'll be honest, I have tried the pills. All I found is that I went to the toilet more often, and that's really all it did from that degree. So again, I've tried a couple of fitness programs, but the stuff I'm trying, I'm not spending like £600 on it, and discounted down from £1,800 discount. I'm not doing any of that. But again, what I'm finding is what you said. Yeah, it does make me feel better, but physically, do I look like the guy on the advert with a shield six pack and army muscles? Well, no, I don't. And it goes back to what you're saying. It's what are your expectations? And I think if you are clearer with your expectations being realistic enough, that yeah, go out and try the pills. Go out and do the Tai Chi, look like an army program or whatever it is, and go and get the machines that you put on your abs. But be realistic with what you expect to get out of them. If you think you're going to put that on and get a six pack and look like Arnie, or you're going to take those pills and look like Dolph Lundgren or whatever it is, the chances are you're going to be sadly disappointed. It's not going to go that way. But the bit of what you said, which is really important as well, that You know, you got to make more than just one change.
Yeah.
You know, if you're stonking down McDonald's three times a day, every day of the week, and then expect to take weight loss pills or stick this machine on a Tai Chi Ani program, it ain't gonna happen. It's just not gonna be the case. And whether we like it or not, things do take effort. And I think we've touched on this before. We find ourselves very much in a materialistic society of want it now. I want it now. I don't want to
Hmm.
work for it. I want it now. And I want to consume it now. And if it doesn't work, then I can just throw it away and move on to the next thing. And it's really gone awry because when I was growing up, it didn't used to be like that. So I don't understand what has led to. I guess social media has been a big part of it, but just that massive shift in society. I think it's maybe it's just a more Western thing. I don't know.
I, I wonder, with you saying that, the one thing that we always try to tell ourselves is, I'm too busy for this. Joel,
Yeah,
when has there been a time when people were not busy? You
yeah,
know, there's always been people out there who had to take care of their family. Yeah, yeah. You know what? It used to be in the 50s and 60s. Yes, dad's dad's income could take care of an entire family. Things were a lot cheaper back then.
yeah,
Yeah, that made it to where mom had a little more time. She could be the homemaker and do stuff like this. Yes, I get it. There used to be differences. But truthfully, they could work their asses off too and never see their kids. They've decided that that's not what they were going to do. Not all of them, of course, but that's not what they were doing. They were going to spend the time with their kids. I think we just need to do what every professional coach has ever told us, and we need to plan it out. We've got to make
yeah,
sure that, we plan time out. And instead, we're using our busy schedules as a crutch, kind of like, my bad day used to be a crutch for alcoholism.
yeah,
My, my uh my pains that I go through are a crutch for my prescription addiction. You know, we've got to be honest with ourselves, stop with this and stop making everything instantaneous. Because
yeah.
if you're not working on it, there's nothing going to happen if you don't work on it. The only thing I can think of that's going to work, regardless on if you're working on it or not, is death. Because it doesn't matter if you're working on it or not, it's going to happen someday. But that's about the only thing that we can count on that is going to happen regardless if we work on it or not.
Absolutely, but again, it's quite interesting what you raised there, and I delivered a wellbeing workshop prior to coming on air with yourself, and it was on stress and relaxation. And one of the points which I pull out of what I do is what you touched on is time. A lot of time when you speak to people about the importance of looking after yourself and having downtime and you're pampering yourself for even 5 minutes, what you usually get back is, I don't have time. I'm busy. But the irony of it is, if it really mattered, you would make time, and everybody's got the same amount of time. What matters is how you choose to value that and how you use it. That's the massive difference in that from that degree. You know what I mean? And like you said, it's about how do you plan your time out. So when I plan out my weeks in advance, I and by putting them in my diary, I've got a greater chance that I'll actually follow through and do them as well. So I've got in there that every 2 weeks on a Monday night I go and play football. On a Tuesday night I go and do yoga. I go into a meditation class on a Tuesday night. I go swimming once a week. These things are, are in my diary for that degree. When I've got my son, that is blocked out in my diary. Clearly, just saying to myself, when I have my son, I don't work. I don't do the work. I'm with him. He's got my
Hmm.
attention. That's a way of, pardon me, managing your time. From that degree, and again, it's something what I've had to work a lot on is particularly around taking breaks. On the one hand, it's great being self-employed, but one minute you look at the clock, it's 10 a.m. Next minute you look at it, it's like 4 p.m. It's like shit. I ain't eaten. I ain't had
Yeah.
any food.
Yeah.
And again, it's really important in trying to manage that time more effectively from that degree. And again, you touched on something there. A lot of time people are like, I'm busy. And it's like, when you actually look at what they're doing, is it actually productive in what you're doing with your time? I think sometimes people are busy doing nothing or looking busy for busy's sake. Because a lot of people, what you touched upon, they would rather remain busy than have to sit down and reflect on decisions that they're making or what things are going on for them, or God forbid, sitting there emotions to feel what's going up for them at the moment in time. From that perspective, a lot of the time as well, which is quite interesting, people remain busy because they're frightened to death of spending time with themselves. They just don't know what to do. You know what I mean? It's an alien concept to that. And usually people associate spending time with yourself means that I'm a loner. And it's like, no, it's important to spend time with yourself. If you're spending your time with yourself all week and you don't see anybody else, yeah, that's a different story. That is, loneliness is a silent killer. That's what it will do. But if you're not spending at least part of each day time with yourself, i.e., no TV or anything like that, just chilling, whatever that looks like, then something's out of whack in regards to your whole life and what that looks like from that degree. Because whether we like it or not, there's one person we can never get away from. That's us. That's ourselves. Believe me, I've tried.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah, I've mentioned many a time how during my previous marriage how I would work 70 hours a week, and then I would the weekend would come and I'd go out and I'd jump on the bike and I was out all weekend. And whenever I would get into an argument, it would all be around, you know, uh, well, when the hell do I have time to do this? Well, I was running away from that time. That's
Yeah,
exactly what I was doing. I was running away from time because I volunteered to put in that many hours of work. Okay?
yeah,
Look, I could have dropped down 5 hours and the paycheck wouldn't have been all that much difference, and I could have been home for 6 to 8 hours more, and I could have spent time with the family and maybe things would have been different. But I was running from time because I had it in my head that if I'm not home, I'm not arguing.
yeah,
That is piss poor, because I should have known that something needed to be changed. Because if you can't be home and you're in that bad of a situation, there could have been other things done rather than neglecting my son at the time, or sons, you know, and neglecting myself,
yeah,
because I was putting myself through hell. Because uh, I was in a truck all day and then I was on my bike. So, Joel, there was no getting away from myself. I was with myself the time, all the time. And so where I could have done so much better, instead of telling people, well, I don't have any time, I just don't have any time. No, I was running from free time. I was running away from structure. I was running away from everything uh, because I had it in my head that if I had that free time, things were going to go to crap.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. And again, that really comes into an interesting point as well. That if you're finding yourself in a relationship, whether that's friends, family, work, whatever it is, and you are making yourself busy, then something is out of whack. Do you know what I mean? And particularly,
Hmm.
what you touched on, the home environment. A lot of people had created a work routine similar to yourself where they were too busy to spend time at home with their family or their wife or whatever it is. When in reality, things weren't great at home, but they were under the delusion. Men are very good at delusions. They were under the delusion of the importance of, I have to keep busy to bring food in for the family and to pay the bills, which I get. But again, you've touched on something there. How much difference would it have been to in that that workload? What you said, to drop 5 or 6 hours, it would have had a massive impact on the paycheck, but you would have been more time at home. If anything, it's that elephant in the room that perhaps the relationship you're in is not a healthy one for you or the other person. And if anything, what I would say is that if you get home at night, wherever you live, and you come into your home and you lock the door, and when you've locked the door into your home and you don't feel safe, warm, and secure, you've got a major problem. You really have. And you might live in a mansion. There are probably people out there listening who are very affluent and well off. But I'm sure some of those individuals are coming home to their mansion or their 8 bedroom house and they're locking the door and they don't want to be there. There's serious issues, there's serious things that need to be addressed because you're not helping yourself, you're not helping your partner, and the kids involved, you certainly aren't helping them in that scenario as well. So again, it's really important just to reflect on things. And some people they say they stay in relationships for the kids when really, no, what it is, they haven't got a backbone to actually take responsibility and accountability for their own actions and their own lives. And you know, divorce is tough. Separation is tough, and it can get quite destructive and quite messy. But believe me, staying in a relationship for the sake of the children is the worst thing in the world you can ever do. If you want to destroy your kids for life, stay together because
Yeah.
that's what you'll do.
Look, just think of it this way, all right? Take 5 seconds the next time that you say, well, I'm staying in this relationship for my kids. Okay, just take 5 seconds and think about it. Do I want my kids to think this is normal?
Hmm.
Take 5 seconds. Do I want my kids to grow up thinking this is normal? Your kids might be smart enough to realize, wow, this is a mess. This is a shit show. Thank God Free and Justice were both smart enough to realize, okay, my dad's a moron. This is not normal. This is not what I want. Thank God my kids grew up knowing that. But think to yourself, because your kids learn from you. Your kids get the mannerisms. Your kids get when I get upset, you can see my teeth grinding in my cheeks. All right. I get that from my father. And I didn't know that until one time when I guess my mom said something that made me mad and I started doing that. And she goes, "Oh, God, you do that same thing your father does." And I was like, going, "Oh, okay." I didn't even know I was doing it. So, but think to yourself, think for 5 seconds. Is this what I want to teach my kids? That this is normal? Because the answer is going to be no. It's got to be no. If you're unhappy, you want to teach your kids it's okay to be unhappy. It's okay not to live your life to the fullest.
Hmm. Absolutely. But there's something really interesting in that, which is really important to to bring out a bit more is, when we're all children, particularly, this is more a boy thing than it is a girl per se thing. You know, we learn more through observing other people's than actually being told by them. And it's very powerful. What is it? Don't do as I say, but do as I do. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's what speaks more. So if you're saying one thing and doing another in your behaviour, your, your child will pay more attention to your actions than they do the words that come out of your mouth. It's an absolute fact, and it's really important to take that on board. This thing that I learn every single day is a massive learning lesson with my son, and I know this came up in conversation based on events over the weekend that of course, I'm going to get a 9-year-old response back, but it can still surprise me. I'm going, what do you think of Daddy? What would you like Daddy to do? What do you want Daddy to do things differently? and it does come out with a lot of positive things about what I do with him, this, that, and the other. But but there's one thing what he said to me, and he's absolutely right. He's 9 years old, but he's spot on that we were driving somewhere. I think we're going on holiday somewhere, going out for a trip. And I was tired, and there was a lot going on the motorway junction. He was asking me questions, and I was answering his questions, and I missed my junction. And we ended up coming into a traffic jam that if I would have caught my junction, would have missed it out. And I got angry, and I swore, and then I blamed him, and then he got upset. And it was after that going, what a dumb dad thing to do. Of course, it's not my son's fault. He's 8 years. He's 8 years old. I'm the adult. I'm the one driving the car. I'm the one who missed the junction. How on God's green earth can I make him responsible
Oh
for
my
me
God.
missing
I
the
have lived
junction?
that life
It
so
was
many
like,
times.
what have I done? And it was an educational opportunity, which I find, I'm learning all the time to go, Daddy's wrong. you know, you are not responsible for Daddy's behaviour. You are not responsible for Daddy's feeling. And again, this came up in conversation. We just discussed it because I'm also wanting to understand as well. And I said to him, look, I'm teaching you these things at 9 year olds. You're not going to remember it all. But I really hope you learn these lessons sooner than what I did. Because it took me 30 or 40 years to realize that people are not responsible for my behavior, my emotions, my choices. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not responsible for theirs. So I really want you to learn this stuff, son, as best you can. Because life will be a whole lot easier for you if you learn these things now. Because Daddy never had that when he was your age. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Oh,
So,
I remember at one point in time going off on my son because he was playing around with my cousin, and my cousin picked him up and dropped him in a pool, and my son just went nuts, and I didn't understand what the hell was going on, and he had an iPhone in his pocket, and I knew nothing about phones, nothing about them. Okay, obviously, this is. I knew that they were there to make phone calls, and that was about it. I didn't even know what an iPhone was at this point in time. I know they were expensive and they were all over TV. Um, but and he had an upset reaction to it, and then of course I made things worse because I'm like going, "What the f is wrong with you? It's a damn phone for you know." I went off. I'm like, "This is a stupid reaction to a phone. What are you doing?" And I didn't realize at that point in time that you know this was something that first off it was his.
yeah,
You know, I should have said, there are so many different things I could have said. I could have said, you should have known, you really need to make sure that when you're doing something, you're taking uh, you know, all possibilities on. So
yeah,
take that thing out of your pocket because where you may not be put into a pool, you very well could fall on your butt and it could get broken that way. I
Yeah.
could have done so many different things, but instead, I had to feel like a complete and total heel when I went back to him to apologize and say, well, your dad's a complete jerk because I overreacted to your reaction. And yes, his was an overreaction, but it was still, he's a child. He's okay to overreact. I'm an adult, and that makes my overreaction just idiotic. So yeah, but yeah, oh God, I oh, traffic with kids and then blaming somebody else for your mistake of missing a turn. Yeah, those are always good things to happen.
Absolutely not on that basis. But again, there's something in that as well that, because again, it takes, despite being adults, and you touched on there, it takes courage to humble yourself to realize that you've been an absolute jerk off to, to apologize to your kids, and that's a vital lesson you're teaching your kids, that you're gonna make poor choices, and you need to take responsibility for your actions. I think there's a lot of people out there who, in your case, you went and explained and apologized, and in my case, I did. But the best a lot of individuals out there who wouldn't have done that, that they would have just carried on blaming that person, blaming their kid. And lo and behold, guess what happens? Your children grow up blaming other people
Yeah,
for their behavior and their feelings and their choice. It's always somebody else's fault and blah, blah, blah. And da-da. It's never your fault. So, again, so there's actual real learning in that as well, to do that. And yeah, some people would go, "Oh, you shouldn't do that. He's 9 years old. He's just a kid." Yeah, but he won't. He won't be a. One day he won't be a kid any longer. He'll be an adult. It starts now. And again, I can't remember comedian names, but there's a comedian, and he's been recently doing a circuit in England doing live performances, and he is very, very good. And he's very, very humorous, but he also drops in absolute words of wisdom, sublime. And a lot of how he does these shows as well, he will tell a bit of standard material, but then he'll take questions from the audience, or he'll get them to send in text messages, and he projects them on the screen. If anybody knows anything about comedy, it's bloody hard work to ad lib stuff like that. You do not know what's going to come up
yeah,
at all. You really don't, and this clearly shows the level of intelligence and the ability of the individual. But some of the questions people ask him are some things we talk about here just absolute live questions, and he answers them in a very serious wisdom way. And he I can't remember exactly how it went, but he was like, when it comes to kids, be tough, tough love, put boundaries in place. Because if you don't do it now, by God, you're going to have a challenge when they're older. You really are. He didn't quite say that, but that was a general point of what he's getting to. It's yes, it's important to love your kids and look after them, but they need boundaries. They need lessons to learn, because you will really cause some problems when they're older, from that degree, without a
as
doubt.
as a parent, I think one of the things that always scared the hell out of me the most, Joel, was my kids growing up and making a poor choice and coming up to me and go, "Dad, this is the way you taught me to do it." You know, and that always scared the hell out of me. That truly did. I always feared that day that it was going to happen. And so, yeah, I and especially back in my drinking days, I used uh, listen to the words, "Don't be what I am," that the saying that you said earlier, and I can't believe I'm blanking on that. Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
You know, I used to tell my kids, look, you want to grow up and be happy? Look at what I'm doing and do everything different. You know, I would tell them that. And it's, now that I'm older, you look at that statement and you're like going, Jesus, how dumb were you? I mean, seriously, how dumb were you? You could tell that things had to change, yet you were just sitting there going, well, I know I need to change things, but there's beer. I mean, come on. And I self realization is something that I'm glad is in my life now. I don't um where I am very, very proud of my sons. They did grow up to be outstanding young men. And by the way, Joel, I don't know if I apparently haven't told you this, but my oldest son, he is a professional wrestler in Japan.
Awesome.
He is actually a belt holder in Japan. So, yeah, but yeah, that's, and I know I've seen him. Yeah, he's also a kindergarten teacher. Okay, so during the Halloween season one year, he had a wonderful costume because he got to just dress up like the wrestler and go in with the black eyes and the bruises and everything. He said, "Dad, I didn't have to get dressed up for any except for I put on my wrestling gear." And I walked into class and they thought it was all a joke. They thought the black eye was fake. You know, and he goes, it was all real. I was like, but yeah, and I truthfully, I think that a lot of times, when people see that wrestling, they don't take into consideration the fitness of those young men and women. They
Yeah,
work their asses off. I mean, they are more skilled at what they do because one missed spot, and that's what they're called. Each movement is a spot. One missed spot can lead to and has led to death of the person you're in the ring with.
yeah,
I know that there's wrestlers like the great Khali who went to go and make a move with somebody who was much smaller than he was,
we killed
and
him.
and yeah, he killed him. And that's yes, it is very, very fake, but they are finely tuned athletes. They
Yeah,
are finely tuned athletes, and they are a hell of a lot of times better than most of the actors you see on TV, you know,
yeah.
and they have to do both at once. So, I mean, I always called it the male soap opera. You know, it's, what are you doing tonight? Well, the male soap opera's on, so I'm going to go and watch that. But yeah, I'm the one that got free into loving wrestling, and so yeah, but he's over in Japan and he's a wrestler over there. So
That's awesome. But again, we were talking about this, when we were off show. It's one of the things you showed me a lovely photograph you had recently with your grandchildren. There's you in it, and obviously your wife and your dog. And it's like, for me, where I am, that I would hope to still be alive, A, and B, if my son chooses to have children, to be part of their life. Do you know what I mean? It's like my mum's very much a part of my son's life. Do you know what I mean? And it's really powerful, that relationship they have together. This one of the things we were talking about. My mum brings so much knowledge and wisdom than I could ever dream of. For a start, she's learned a lot more about the good, the bad, and ugly than I ever have, being another
yeah,
40 years older than me. And she comes from a generation where a lot of that has disappeared. Do you know what I mean? A lot of those values and that those traditions. And again, I was speaking to somebody else about this yesterday, that we will get to a period of time in our life where we will only just be able to read about the Second World War or watch films about it, because there'll be no one left alive.
Hmm.
There'll be nobody left alive to share those experiences of how not to do repeat patterns on things. Unfortunately, we haven't seemed to have learned that as a civilization from those mistakes yet. But yeah, so very much so. It's great. I mean, mum having that relationship with my son, and that feeding into that idea of family, and from that degree, and it's something again that crosses my mind. That if I can do the best I can now with my son, that one day he will be an adult and he will be a dad. That I hope he will have a better idea about what to do with his children from that degree, and hopefully I might be able to be part of that as well from that perspective. So it's yeah, it's really fascinating. And again, what you said, blink of an eye, he turned 9 last week. Sorry, I don't even know what date we're on now. 2 weeks ago, he turned 9 two weeks ago. And it's like another blink of an eye, like you were saying, the 32, the 34. It's like, it's just surreal. And even now, I'm looking at my son going, feeling almost like a bit of sense of loss, almost preparing myself that it will. 1 minute he won't be here anymore. And God forbid he might not actually want dad around because dad's not cool with his mates, or dad's not there going out with lads when he's 21. So I've got nothing against that, by the way. If you do go out with your children and they're 21 and you go out for a pint, that's brilliant, and I hope that I will be able to do that, but not to be biased to my side all the time. But I
Yeah.
would hope, like you said, that if he's older and he's dealing with a problem or he gets in a difficulty, that he feels he can pick up the phone and call me. That I won't rip his head off. That I won't shout at him, because believe me, probably a lot of the things he will find himself in, I've been involved in. They've not done worse. So
Yeah.
I can't really judge him.
And then really a couple things that we need to remember when that happens with our kids. The first thing is you got to remember the way that you were. Okay, mom and dad said, do not do this, do not be that person, don't do it, that's just wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. No, stop that, because we know that that pushes them to want to do it more.
Yeah,
Don't tell a kid, don't touch the stove. Take the kid, show him the stove, and say, look, I wouldn't touch this stove because I know my skin, and I know it's going to burn my skin if I touch this stove. Okay, you have to make your own choices. It's going to hurt, it's going to stink, it's going to do these things. You the best way to do this is point out, you know what can happen. But right now we're telling kids that they can't live out feelings, because that's not the proper way to do it. How the
yeah,
hell do we know what the proper way to do is? You're going to tell me that you've never lived a mistake, a poor choice, or if you want to call it a mistake, I'll allow you to call it a mistake. I don't believe in mistakes. Poor choices is, lives are different now. We're more aware. Where, Joel, when I was a kid, a child with ADHD was a pain in the ass. That's what they were. There was no ADHD when we were growing up. Okay, a kid that was being a brat, a kid that was out of control, they were a pain in the ass. They were a brat. They weren't ADHD. There was no, there weren't all these tests and everything that, hey, my kid has a neurological issue. I just need to tell. No, no, your kid's a pain in the ass. That's the way it is. So things have changed, and we need to realize that, where every generation says the same damn things. These kids today, they don't know how to work. Rah, rah, rah. No, they figured out a better way to do it than what we used to do it. Let's work with them. Let's show them what we did. Let's learn what they did. Let's put them together and make what works for us, hopefully help them, and what is working for them, take on some of that knowledge. learn from them. And
Absolutely.
stop telling a
Absolutely.
kid that they're not what they are. We're confusing them. Parenting is not an easy thing, and it's not for the weak. And it's not for somebody who's not willing to learn lessons. That's for damn sure.
Absolutely. But it's something what you've raised down again. This is quite interesting in the UK. There's been a massive explosion in waiting lists for ADHD assessment for adults, but even more so for children. It is off the charts, and there is, like you said, particularly from my own personal experience, we're waiting for a final assessment with Aiden, or in regards to ADHD. But within that as well is the awareness around, this is my understanding. I've been diagnosed with ADHD as well. It's what does that mean? And when I reflect back on my childhood and Aiden's, it's when there has been a level of trauma, what I mean, where things haven't ran that smoothly. And I'm not parent bashing here at all. My mum and my dad, the two individuals with their own issues, they got together and those issues became worse. And they did their best to deal with what was presented with them, me and my sister. No parents have kids to beat the shit out of them and abuse them in anger. Unfortunately, I know some children and adults have had that experience, but under normal general circumstances, people have kids and they do the best they can. They might get it, they might make poor choices, but most of the time, one would hope they do the best they can. So, when I look at Aiden, like I said, it wasn't particularly a pleasant time with me and his mum. It did have moments within that, and obviously that's going to have an impact in what we've been talking about. You're learning from behaviour or facial expression or body language more than what you say. So again, it's no wonder perhaps he may have a neurological disorder, not disorder. That's a horrible way. That his brain's adapted in a different way. To some degree, that's what ADHD and autism is.
Mm-hmm.
Brain is adapted in a different way to survive, and it helps to bring awareness around certain behaviours that I do and certain behaviours that he does. But it's not an excuse to say when you do a poor choice, oh, that's my ADHD. No, 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 no. You still got to take responsibility for your actions. You still got to take responsibility for your behaviour and accountability. And what
Yeah.
I find with a lot of people, and that they put their children into an ADHD session, which is great. And then when they get diagnosed, everything that rolls off their tongue or in their children's behaviour, they explain, well, that's their ADHD or that's their autism. No, it's not. What it actually is you as a parent need to do better and putting better boundaries in place and structure for your child. And as an adult, I've been diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia, but I have mental capacity and the ability to understand poor choices and
Yeah.
responsibility and accountability. Do you know what I mean? Yes, it has shaped my life, and potentially when I wasn't aware that I had ADHD, perhaps I would have made some of those choices differently. Perhaps. But it's still not an excuse to say, oh, when I look back over that was because of my ADHD, or what I did today because of such and such, well, that's my ADHD. No, it's not. And it's also not what some people do. What I heard recently, I was speaking to somebody about this. I got in conversation with an individual I was speaking to, just friendly conversation, and we got into talking about ADHD and this, that, and the other. And he was saying, my uncle, I think it was an uncle or something like that, a member of the family, he's pinning everything on an ADHD assessment. As if that's the magic pill, the answer for it all. And it's not. Yes, it was useful to be diagnosed with ADHD to get awareness, understanding of how I operate, how the computer works up here, and how it has and does influence my behaviour. But it's not something to put all my hopes in. Going, well, that's it now. That whenever something happens that I'm not happy with, or I do something to upset somebody else, or I make poor choices, to say that's my ADHD. That's not acceptable to do that. And I think this comes into what we've been talking about, where if anything, what it comes down to is it brings more awareness to yourself, but you are an adult who can make choices, and 9 out of 10 times you have capacity to understand right from wrong. There is no defunct position for that. That operating system doesn't get changed with ADHD. It's like, you know what I say to people. It's like you do something that's deemed to be wrong, and you find yourself in court. Just think how you're going to get on when you say to the judge, "Sorry, judge, I didn't mean to punch that person in the face. It's my ADHD."
I
What do you
I
think
was
you're
off
going
my
to
meds. I was off my meds.
do? Yeah. What do you think they're going to do? Do you think the judge is going to go there? It's all right. Off you
Yeah,
go. See you later. Don't you worry about that assault on that
yeah.
individual. It's all right.
Yeah, next time just
Just
make sure
no.
you take your meds, that this
Yeah.
murder is okay, we get it. No. So,
Life doesn't work that way, does
no.
it?
No. Look, people are forgiving to a point. They,
Yes.
they really are. So, Joel, thank you, brother. Enjoy your trip.
Absolutely.
I really, really am very jealous. I just want you to know that. Remember, every morning when you wake up, take a picture and send it to me just to make me go, asshole. You know?
Well, it's not just that with AI, Zach, it can put you in the picture and
Yeah, there
send it
you
back to
go.
you.
There we go. There we go. So, and before we go, I just do want to say something here to people that one of the funnest things in the world to do is if you really want to make people's lives a little interesting, take and share a story with them about something like pickles on Facebook, because that algorithm the next couple of days, nothing but pickles will show up on their or on their Facebook page. I've done this to my wife, and it is so fun. She'll yell at me. It's like, I get every advertisement for pickles now, thanks to you. And I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that. That's not nice. But it is funny.
What's that? Don't do as I say, do as I
Yeah,
do.
yeah. There you go. There you go. So, Joel, how do people get a hold of you, brother?
Yeah, as always, Joel White, Rewire for Men, rewireformen.com. I've looked at my website. I'm always open for having virtual coffees with people. There's the back page of my website, Rewire for Men /mental clarity. Lots of useful information there. What I find with a lot of the men, we are lazy and we don't spend the time to look for really helpful information. So I've taken some of that effort out by putting on that webpage. But if people go on my website, a great pop-up comes up where they can download a booklet, which gives them lots of interesting understanding and tips around what some of the things we've been talking about today, really, around behavior and actions. So yeah, rewireformen.com. There we are.
So, and I just, my final thing for everyone is let's stop using our calendars as an excuse for getting away with things or not doing things. We all have to learn how to manage our time better. You know,
Mm,
we all have to make sure that well, I don't have time to eat properly. Well, maybe that's because you don't want to eat properly.
yeah,
You can't use your schedule as an excuse for everything. You just can't. Because
no.
if, Joel, you said it, if it's important to you, you will make time.
Mm,
So let's make sure that things that are important to you are more important than your time, because that's the only way that you're going to prove that they're more important to you. So, as if you make
love
time.
it.
So, brother, again, thank you so very much. Next month, Joel and I are really going to start introducing our plans for a men's group that is going to be every month. We're going to be inviting you. I got to get through this 22-hour thing, and you've got to do a trip. And then when we get back together next month, we're really going to start pushing forward with this men's group. Men, we invite you to come and join us once a month, and it's going to be a chance to where you can, we're going to have it to where we can all get together and talk about things. If you have something private, can go into breakout rooms, but it's going to be a group that men can get together and we can learn from each other. No one's going to be in charge. This is going to be a group of men that are going to get together and talk things through, because every once in a while we just need that, you know.
Absolutely.
So, but thank you all very much. And again, please, if you look right over Joel's head, there is a red QR code. I need your help. My sick little computer here needs your help, because I've noticed in this I'm having glitches, and we just don't want that on the most important show we do every year, the Mission for Healthy Heroes. So please support, or at least schedule yourself to come on board and tell your story, because your story can help people get around the walls that block their happiness. So please join us. Thank you very much, Joel. We'll see you in a month.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, my friend.
And I wasn't. I was trying to be prepared, but I wasn't prepared. So, but now I'm prepared. Here we go. I didn't have time to plan this out.